everybody, welcome along to episode 68 of Percussion Discussion. Hope you're all well and happy out there. As always, I'm going to ask, please check out our social media. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, and of course our world famous YouTube channel. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, this would really help. And of course, this means you won't miss any of the fabulous upcoming episodes that we've got, or some of the great episodes that have already been, and there's a lot of them. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. So thanks for that. If you prefer to listen on the go, then as always, you can find all of our conversations in podcast form. You can find those on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So if that's your thing, download it, listen to it in the car, on the bus, wherever takes your fancy. On to today's guest. The most remarkable drummer, a guy who's been pushing the boundaries of drumming for the last 25 or 30 years. Pushing the boundaries. I don't think he has boundaries. Anything is possible with this gentleman. It was a real pleasure to speak to him for an hour or so. So it gives me huge pleasure to welcome the incredible Mr. Thomas Lang. So Thomas, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you being here with me.
Thank you, Matty. My pleasure entirely.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thrilled to have you. And before we get into it, we must thank I must thank our mutual friend, Adam Parsons, for making the connection. So thank you, Adam.
Yes, thank you, Adam. He's always the facilitator.
Yes,
he's very. Yeah.
And it's appreciated. So look, I know you've just got back from performing in PASIC, or I guess that's how you say it, isn't it? Yeah, and with Pete Lockett.
Yes, my old and very good close friend and amazing, inspiring multi-percussionist Pete Lockett, from London, of course. Yes, we were asked to perform at PASIC, or he was, about 2 years ago, and they said, Pete, we want you back. Could you imagine doing something special, for whatever next year's show? And he said, yeah, maybe can I bring another drummer? And they said, absolutely. Who are you thinking of? And he said, well, Thomas Lang would be great. And he called me up, and of course I gave it the thumbs up immediately. But then, of course, the pandemic happened, and we didn't get to do it until just now. So for 2 years, we've been waiting to do this, and it was really exciting to finally get it done, pull it off. And it was tricky because we didn't have the chance to actually rehearse together because of the travel restrictions. They only lifted the travel ban for Europeans 2 days before PASIC on the 8th of November. So Pete couldn't fly out earlier to come here for rehearsals. And we had this whole thing planned here. We're going to rehearse here for a week and film it all, and also record some stuff, make an album, etc. None of that happened. So it was a total impromptu, performance with no rehearsal. Well, we sat down in a hotel room and did a bit of a pillow practice on the hotel beds for an hour. But we both prepared really well, and we pulled it off, and it was amazing. So I was very, very excited, and it's always such a pleasure, to play and hang with Pete. He's amazing.
Well, definitely, and I think I mentioned this in an email. Definitely one of the most inventive percussionists that are on the planet.
Absolutely, he's so creative. He's so innovative and inventive, and he is totally left field and really hip and modern. His songwriting also, and he has such a profound rhythmic understanding because of his experience with South Indian music and all that, and it's just beautiful to work with somebody who kind of zooms in into all the small details and really pays attention to detail and has such control and grasp of complex rhythms and layers and polymetrics and odd time signatures and reductions and extensions and all the, that stuff. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I felt really sort of comfortable, and I always have in the past when we did stuff together, playing with him, and his sense of time and his accuracy, everything. He's just an incredible musician.
Sure. I mean,
I can show you something. Hang on, I'll show you something right there.
Yeah.
Here, because I see it. It's on the music stand, still from before PASIC. Just to give you an idea of This is just one of the pieces. And as you can see, there's a lot of notes and complicated things on there. And this is all unison stuff.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's all completely composed and written out, note for note. And and he plays these just wonderful sort of Indian rhythms and structures and patterns. And then we had a whole bunch of these songs, all very complex material, all in 19 and 5 and 3 and 9, and with layers of 7 on top, and
So,
whatever you can imagine, he put it in.
So
It's great.
the rhythms I'm seeing there are written on a single line. So that is purely the form of the song, and you're free to play those rhythms on however you feel. Yeah.
Yes, I was free. So he sent me these charts, and I also wrote some songs for this.
Yeah.
But the songs that he wrote, he sent me the drum or tabla charts, and I was able to then creatively interpret it on the drum set, because clearly on the tabla you only have 2 drums,
Yeah.
one high, one low, and on some of the other percussion instruments he's playing, djembe or surdo or whatever, you have one very specific sound at a certain timbre. So I interpreted and orchestrated the patterns in a way so they wouldn't interfere with his kind of soundscape. So when he was playing low drums, I was playing cymbals, and when he was playing tabla, I was doing a lot of hi-hat, snare drum, like short sounds, or kick drum. Actually, a lot of the stuff that he played on tabla, I played on the kick drums. Really fast, busy, kind of double stroke roll patterns. And that was really, for me, interesting and challenging, of course, because these are very fast. I could play you something, it's on the computer, but really, really interesting stuff, because when somebody, he plays these super fast. So I'm copying that with my kick drums, and it's quite interesting to hear that combination of sounds.
And is there any click involved, or is it purely live?
It's purely live, and well, there is a click involved, but it's a hand played click by Pete. So he has these little finger symbols that generate the click,
Yeah.
and we play to that. So it's a loose kind of click. It's not a computer generated mathematical. It's a very natural kind of organic flowing click.
So I have to ask, you've spent an hour not even on your instruments, playing on pillows and what have you. That must be fairly nerve-wracking going into a full, basic packed out house. How's this going to go?
Yes, it was a little daunting, and yes, it was. I was worried, and so was Pete. But after that 1 hour we did in the hotel room, and we both prepared very well for the show. And after that 1 hour, and we sent each other videos. When he sent me one of his songs, I would learn them on a pad, just the patterns, to really get into the micro timing of everything. And then I would play him what I had learned on the pad, and just to double check with him that I've got everything right. And then he would, green light that. Then I would take that to the drum set and start orchestrating those patterns on the kit, film it again, send it back, ask for his opinion, evaluation and input, and he would, go, maybe change that or change this. And then we had an arrangement. And he did the same thing with my songs. So he made suggestions regarding the orchestrations and which pattern to play where and which instrument, and so forth. And sent me audio recordings of himself playing those parts, and I listened to those and imported those into my arrangements, checked them out, and so we prepared really well. And that's the key. You can't just show up at a PASIC with material like this and kind of wing it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean that is a whole lot of work, isn't it? These things don't happen just by chance, do they?
No, it's a lot of work. And although we only played for an hour, including sort of our solo spots, we probably had maybe 40 minutes of music. or just under 40 minutes of actual music, and those 40 minutes were intense,
Mm.
complex, very challenging pieces, all of them.
Yeah.
And just to learn, 40 minutes of material this complex and this confusing, because with if you look at that Indian idea and concept of reductions and extensions, you get lost very easily. It requires really intense concentration and focus during the show and when you're learning these things. And you have to create a lot of your own kind of mental bridges and reminders within the song structure to not forget where it's going and which part comes next and how many times this one repeats, and not to forget how many times you already played the 9 before the 7 comes. And that's where my orchestrations came in, conveniently. I So if you have a reduction, or of 7, or we started with like 19, 17, 15, and so on, 16th notes. If you have a reduction like that and you repeat everything 3 times, you can easily get lost, in the whatever, 17, 16
Yeah.
bar on the third repeat. So I arranged the parts in a way that helped me build these kind of mental bridges. So the first, pattern would be played only on cymbals. The second would be sort of with pitches on the toms, and the third one would be kind of a groove-based thing.
Mm.
And I would repeat that flow
Yeah.
throughout the reductions or extensions, etc. So I always knew where I was, and kind of
Cool.
Pete was hearing that I'm still in it, and so on. So,
Yeah.
but that takes preparation, of course, and practice. So a lot of practice and work went into this. Yeah.
So are you? I'm assuming you leave your music at home at this point. You don't put it on the stage with you.
No. Yes, I learned. I like to perform music from memory,
Yeah.
and I did have two small cheat sheets, but I didn't use them
Yeah.
just to be safe, because those were things that I wasn't sure of
Mm.
in terms of phrasing. So I brought them to the hotel room practice to double check,
Yeah.
because Pete notates it the Indian way.
Yeah.
I note in the Western way.
Hmm.
So there's a slight kind of conflict, especially with sort of dotted eighth notes and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly and transcribed it correctly. That's why I brought two little cheat sheets, but in the end I didn't use them. So I
Wow.
played everything from memory. Yeah.
And do you know what? Something that's often overlooked, I find, an event like this, is having a great monitor engineer who's going to give you everything you need.
Yeah.
If
Mm,
that's not right on the day, it's gonna be a train wreck, isn't it?
absolutely. And we had a great guy, all the people working for the Percussive Arts Society, of course,
Yeah.
really competent, great people,
Mm.
with a great engineer. And I also had my own monitor in-ear feed,
Yeah.
so that makes it always a lot easier.
Of course.
And I had a really nice, clear sound of Pete and my kit, so it was great.
Fantastic. So obviously, we're hopefully at the other end of all this COVID horribleness that we've been going through. I mean, with your incredible facility there, I'm guessing you've had a really busy time over COVID through lockdown and what have you.
Well, yes, it was busy, but not necessarily with playing all the time.
Yeah.
I built this studio and this whole teaching facility here in California in the months leading up to lockdown.
Mm.
And this is a music school franchise, and our official launch date was a week after lockdown, which of course never happened. So
Yeah.
it was, you know, terrible timing, and that meant I had to deal with a lot of admin, financial, legal issues
Yeah.
during that period last year, and all the work I was really able to do was recording work. Yes, and I did a fair amount for sure, and I started immediately doing online master classes and online lessons, etc. So I was already set up for that, which made it a lot easier for me. I could jump right in, and I did online camps, and I hosted drum camps from here. I performed at various drum festivals from here. I did the Mona Drummer Festival from here, or in Seoul Drum Fest, and Salzgitter Drum Festival, and various others. So it was great to have the space
Yeah.
and the infrastructure in place. And also, yes, I did a fair amount of session work, although towards the end of the year, people also were running out of money. Producers or artists that
Of
were
course.
out there struggling as well.
Mm.
Their budgets were shrinking after a year of this. So um, things, especially earlier this year, changed, and also the online work, kind of the session work, not the teaching, but the session
Yeah.
work. That became a little more sort of sparse.
Sure.
But I'm hanging in there.
It's a bit. I mean, you've just before we started recording. I don't know. Is it possible? Could you just show us? Just give us a run around the room. We don't have to run, but
Okay, so here, I'll give you a tour. Yeah,
oh,
I like to have several drum sets set up always. Here is one large kit.
beautiful.
This is my double kick concert tom kit, and I've got my turbo kicks down here. Everything's always mic'd in my studio. I'll go and show you
Cool.
from the back side.
Oh,
So
look at that.
here's one.
Beautiful.
Got my gong drum, my rada toms, everything. And here, do you see that device there? That's a video switcher and streaming
Right.
device.
Okay.
It's just not on right now, but here's a big screen so I can see my students on it. And I have another mini kit here. This is just a tiny little 3-piece drum set where I like to learn music.
Okay.
So when I get a new session or track, I like to use this super tiny kit
Hmm.
to just learn the songs before I start thinking about fills or orchestrations or toms or anything like that. I learn everything on this, and then I have another kit here, which is kind of a you see that?
Yeah. Got you.
That's a standard kind of 5-piece kit that I use for your standard kind of fusion sessions, and
Lovely.
and sometimes I have another one or two kits set up. Actually, I still have a lot of space here,
Yeah. Of course.
so sometimes I have another one or two kits set up. So I have choices.
So
You know,
you get a session on. You just literally turn up and do it. You're ready to go. Mike's everything's ready.
everything's always ready. Everything's always mic'd up. I can always film everything.
Yeah.
I always have multiple cameras set up, and I can literally, as soon as I know the material or have the files inputted in my computer, I can start working right off the bat. I have, for each drum set, I have a bespoke recording template
Yeah.
set up, and with all the inputs and gains and everything for each drum. And all I have to do is go hot on my computer and go input and record and ready to go. It's very convenient.
Wow. Do you tend to work with an engineer, or do you work alone as well in some
I do
situations?
everything alone here. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've done it for a long time, and I'm very happy with the sounds I'm getting here, with the room sound, and with my gear. I use, I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
I use Universal Audio
Yeah.
interfaces and everything else. A lot of Universal Audio plugins and waves, of course, also. And I do everything in the box. I don't need a big desk.
Yeah.
And because I do mostly recording sessions here, I don't need a huge desk for mixing or anything like
Sure.
that, or a ton of outboard gear.
Mm.
This is basically a tracking room.
Yeah.
Although I do mix here also, but even if I do that, I'll do everything in the box. I do
Yeah.
everything on the computer.
Yeah. I mean, you can
It's much
tell.
more.
You can
Much more.
tell straight away that the sound in the room. It's just a beautiful sound straight away, because I hear some people in their kitchens and
Right.
that's just it's just a gorgeous sound straight away. You can just tell.
Yeah, it's very dry, very controlled, and that's what I wanted. And I have these large gobos here, for example. I don't know if you can see those
Yes.
things.
Can yeah.
soft on one side, but really hard on the other side.
Yeah.
And they're on wheels, so I can just move them around and subdivide the room and make it a little more bright, a little more, vibey, with
Yeah.
slightly more reverb and reflection, or super dry.
Yeah.
So the room gives me a lot of options.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
look, let's talk about the Thomas Lang drum universe, which is kind of like, would it be described as an online school?
Yeah. This is my online drum school. Yes.
Yeah, and this is for anybody who is interested can sign up, and I'm guessing it must have been a hell of a lot of work to put that lot, because there's a lot on there, isn't there?
Yes. I don't even know. I think I never updated the landing page, so it still says whatever 35 hours of material, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a couple of hundreds of hours of material on there now. And yes, it took a long time to put together. I recorded sort of the core curriculum, if you like, over a 1 or 10 day period.
Mhm.
And then as soon as the school launched, I kept adding to it on a monthly basis. So it grew over the years, and it's I think very interesting and well-rounded
Mm.
and informative place for drummers to get information.
Absolutely, and I'll make sure that the web address is on the end of the interview as well. So
Yeah,
if anybody is interested, then they can sign up and enjoy it. And yeah,
perfect. Yeah, thank you.
so
Yeah, it's
Thomas,
great. By the way, I work with drum channels, so
yeah,
uh, if you sign up for Thomas Lang's Drum Universe, you get drum channel content for free for 1 year, and vice versa.
right,
And of course, drum channel has an incredible amount of wonderful educational and drum entertainment content. So it's a really good deal. If you sign up for drum channel, you get my access to my drum school for 1 year as well. So we have this
cool,
deal, me and Don Lombardi. And so if anybody is interested, it's kind of a two birds with one stone kind of deal.
superb, amazing, amazing. Well, I think from seeing your place there, they can see the quality that's going to be involved. It's going to be second to none,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
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 absolutely.
absolutely. I'm very happy with that. And also with the rest of the facility, we have teaching rooms here and offices and editing rooms. And it's a fairly, good size. So it's about 3,000 square feet,
Wow.
the
Okay.
space. And yeah, and if anybody's interested in physical lessons, even, I also teach here physical lessons, and of course also remote lessons and online lessons via Zoom and Skype.
Mhm.
And if anybody's interested, just contact me at thomaslang00@yahoo.com.
That's that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, look, Thomas, if you don't mind, can we go back to where it all began for you? I know you started at a young age. Just it always fascinates me where the love of drums came from.
Okay. Well, for me, like for so many other drummers, it was um, I saw a drummer on television when I was 4 years old, and I was intrigued because he counted off the song. He seemed to be the one in charge, leading the band into the song. He played a big pickup drum fill
Mm.
at the beginning of the song on this huge drum set, and he was the only one in the band sitting down. Everybody else had to stand up, and I felt like he was somewhat driving the whole thing and in control. And it kind of, because of that, it was on my radar and it looked fun.
Mm.
And then because that drummer was on my mental radar, a few days later, my parents took me to a local fairground where there was a band performing, and I was still 4 years old, and I was just drawn towards the drums and walked up to the drum set while the band was performing on stage and the drummer was playing. And I remember, and I walked right up to the kick drum, and I was about the size of the kick drum then. I was 4 years old, so
Sure.
uh, I wasn't much taller than that. But I remember just holding on to the hoop as a small boy from the front and feeling the power and literally physically that physical sensation of the air just hitting my chest and the thumping of the kick drum and the loud noise of the cymbals and everything moving, all four limbs were going, and I just remember being completely blown away by that. And that was it. That was the pivotal moment for me. That got me hooked immediately, and I told my mom that day, I need to play drums. This is what I want to do. and it never changed.
Yeah.
It was only later when I realized that this is actually also a job
Yeah.
and could be a profession, then I immediately made that decision that that's what I want to do. If that's uh, if that has job potential, then sign me up. I
Absolutely.
would have just carried on playing, as a hobby, but since since it is a profession too, I was like, yes,
Mm.
that's for me. Sign me up.
You've kind of done all right, haven't you?
Kind of, yes, kind of done all right. But as it's a very unpredictable,
Yeah.
it's a very difficult business, the music business.
Yeah.
There's no other business that's like it,
Yeah.
music and entertainment. Nothing is like it.
Mm.
It's there's so many things that aren't really tangible. You depend so much on trends, luck, fashion. It's a fragile business, but it's also really, really rewarding
Mm.
and and full of really incredible people, and has such incredible potential for wonderful experiences culturally, creatively, musically, on a human level, and it involves so much travel, and it's a wonderful thing to do. And simply on the drumming side, I'm pretty happy with how things turned out. And of course, I could be happier with the music industry and the state of it in general, but we all make do and figure things out and make it happen.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I'm still very happy doing it.
I have to ask. I mean, you've taken technique to a whole different level and skill and ability. And was that always in your mindset as a youngster to push drumming to a whole different thing? Because you have, and it's incredible to witness. Was that always in your mind, if you like, to really push things?
Yes, I think I always wanted to have the ability to go to the extreme and to freely translate my ideas onto the drum set and be able to play whatever I could imagine.
Mm.
And in order to do that, I needed better technique. So technique was always in focus as a vehicle for
Mhm.
my ideas, for sure. Yes. It wasn't about the technique itself. It was about hearing things that I haven't heard anybody else play before. I wanted to create something that was new and maybe a little left field and different,
Mm.
and play something that I hadn't heard anybody else play before. And I realized that technique makes that possible. and and that's why I focused on technique for many years, because it gave me the ability to translate really bizarre and sort of unconventional ideas
Mm.
onto the drum set, especially involving a lot of foot stuff and a lot of independence and coordination.
Sure.
So yes, it was a focus, but not because of technique itself.
Of course.
Technique is just, you know, but because I wanted those tools. The
Yeah.
more tools you have, the more with more ease you can build a house. If you only have a hammer, it's hard to build a house.
Of course. Of
You
course.
need a lot of tools to do all the jobs correctly and create some beautiful architecture. And the more you have at your disposal, of course, the easier it is, and the more finesse and the more artistic you can become in your construction, if you
Mm.
like, and the more efficient you are,
Sure. Sure. Absolutely.
and
I mean,
uh,
oh,
and less potential for injury too.
yeah, absolutely. What age were you then when you really decided that you were going to go all out and just push the limits?
I was probably 10,
Oh,
10,
right. Oh,
12.
that young.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very young. I started at 5, so after about 5 years, I got into proper hand and foot technique.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I was at the conservatory very young. I was also in my early mid-teens,
Mm.
and at that point, I was already a total technique nerd.
Okay.
So, and um, I was going through all the American NERD marching books and DCI stuff, and yeah, I was into Basler drumming at the time, and there weren't really any sort of double bass drum books, not many out. There was Joe Franco's book and or DVD or VHS tape at the time, and that was really it. So everything I studied regarding foot technique came out of snare drum books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you've done so many sessions and things over the years, which not much is said about. I know it's well documented that you've done them and that's it. It's a job, and you've always gone and done a great job, you know. But you're one of these drummers, which I really like about you. You're not self-indulgent. You'll go and do a session, and if you have to play 4 on the floor, that's what you do. But even on your solo albums, there is some that are obviously crazy, but the album, I bought it, I think, from the drum clinic where I saw you in the Willows. Something along these lines.
Oh yeah, wow.
Which is a great album, and the track, I can't remember the track name now. Hollow, for example, it's just a groove. It's such a nice, and respectfully, anybody could play that. They couldn't make it play it. They couldn't play it like you play it, and it's such a nice, you know. Is that with your solo albums? Is it about the songs rather than?
For me, it's always about the songs,
Yeah.
and you know, there are 2 hearts beating in my chest. The one is the drum nerd, and my passion for all things rhythmic and complex and sort of high end sort of drumming skills, technique, and all that. I love all that. I'm a drum nerd, but sort of always the more powerful and the more important aspect for me was the song and the music in general, and the entertainment factor, the catchiness of the song, the fact that I like to play music that people want to hear, that they don't have problems understanding and deciphering what people are doing. So I'm a real fan of popular music, of catchy music, of songs that people can sing along to. And I started playing music because of that, not because of the drums alone.
Yeah.
So yes, it was impressive that first moment with the drummer, but then when I realized, when I first started playing the drums, nothing felt better than just a beat to me. And it's still like that. I happily never play a flammadiddle with my feet again, you know, and just play simple beats.
Yeah.
You know, but my ambition to improve on the instrument is still there. You know, I still want to learn new things and maintain a level of playing and control, so I can play the simple music with more ease.
Yeah.
It's really simply only because of that. I love playing simple songs, really repetitive grooves, no fills.
Yeah.
Great. I love that. And that's what I get to do when I do a lot of sessions. For example, it's, you know, I keep it very simple and rational. And that is, for me, the happiest moments in music. It's my drum virtuoso kind of stuff is, first of all, it's much more rare than me just tracking sessions for people or playing tours or whatever. So there's not a lot of that happening, but it's kind of what the drum community sees and focuses on. But the percentage of that is actually quite small.
Yeah.
I do a lot more very simple commercial tracking sessions and stuff, you know.
And of course, yeah, it's the clinic side that everyone wants to see the fireworks, don't they? That's
of course,
you know, and you always deliver. Let's be honest. And another thing that always impresses me, that your kit, it doesn't really restrict you playing on a small kit. You can still do the same things. And I remember you saying to me, I was chatting with Dom Famularo in Sheffield, the clinic where I saw you with John Tempesta. And we're talking about books, and he was suggesting, and you suggested yours. And I remember you saying, I said, I haven't got enough drums for this book. And he said, you can do this on a 4-piece kit. And I remember you saying that to me.
Yes, I mean, like I said, look, this is where I spent most of my time on.
Yeah.
It's a 3-piece kit.
Yeah.
You know, this is where I do the bulk of my practicing, recording, preparations, learning songs,
Yeah.
even tracking demos, and a lot of sessions on that tiny kit. And I can do everything on this 3-piece kit that I think needs to be done. You know, I don't need all the different sounds. For some things, I just want to have a range of sounds, and also it's about the audio experience when you listen back to it, and you have a lot of toms in the panorama. For example, you have things happening here in the left speaker, and then there's stuff in the right speaker, and then there's stereo things between my 2 hi-hats, for example. I like that soundscape and the panorama of a large drum set. It's more symphonic, and for some styles of music, I think that's more appropriate.
Yeah.
I think it's good to bring more pitches and different timbres into a drum track.
Yeah.
It's more like a percussion ensemble at that point. And I like that idea of playing more orchestral, more, you know, drum fills that have a lot of toms with different pitches and surprising bizarre sounds, little bells or crashers or gong drums or rada toms, because they just break up the soundscape and kind of stick out, make it a little more surprising and maybe a little more unexpected. And then you still have that element of the meat and potatoes, the kick and snare in that large setup, but you can reduce everything to just that, to just kick and snare and maybe one tom. That's plenty for what the essence you know, is of what we do.
Absolutely. Well, look, Thomas, you've been inspiring drummers for, you know, I don't know, as far back as I can remember, really. You know, I mean, at least, I don't know, at least 25 years, I guess. I guess something like that I can remember. You know, and and it's one of those. I've seen you a few times in clinic, and I've friends have gone. You know, you go coming out, and it's like I'm never playing again. But hopefully, you know, they change their mind and they get home and go, do you know what? Let's try a little bit of this. That's the way it should be, isn't it? You know,
well, I hope so.
No one ever wants to put anybody off.
Right, exactly.
But do you still practice a lot every day? Are you an avid practicer? No.
I wish I could, but no, I don't have the time. And if I did, I would. I try to make time for it, and I usually fail miserably, but I try to carve out a few hours every week.
Yeah.
Even if it's just playing along to songs I like, or practicing some, you know, movements on the kit and maintaining certain movements and licks and chops and technique.
Sure.
And I'll watch a movie here on Netflix or something, and I'll sit on this small little kit. I've got my headphones plugged in. I'll just watch a movie, and rather than just sit at home and watch a movie and do nothing, I prefer doing that kind of stuff in the studio, and I can catch up with, you know, modern and current popular culture, you know, and at the same time get a little bit of work done. I try to do that. I try to. Well, it's hard to say, but it's always on my plan.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen every day, but every few days I get a couple of hours usually. Yeah. And then I play a lot, you know, so I'm still working and playing all the time.
Yeah.
And there are phases like now when I'm preparing for something like this with Pete Lockett.
Yeah.
It's very technical.
Sure.
So that requires a lot of specific technique practice and really building up chops to play those fast foot patterns, for example. So that forces me to work really hard on technique and maintain technique, or bring it to a level again where I feel really comfortable. So I guess that's also practicing time.
Do you enjoy that side of it as well, having to work towards something?
Absolutely. I'm very much goal oriented, and always practiced with goals and results in mind.
Yeah.
And this type of stuff for me, like Pete's or our performance at PASIC,
Hmm.
the drum virtuoso kind of thing, it forces me to, and at the same time kind of gives me a chance to practice those things and play those things. And that's really why I do it, because musically it's a challenge, yes. I learn something from it every time, and that's important to me. I always want to have a takeaway, some kind of result, some kind of uh, learning experience and benefit from doing things like that.
Yeah.
So that is my main motivation. I'm doing this because I learned something, and it'll eventually help me, become more experienced, and at the same time, it gives me a chance to practice complicated things.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win again.
Well, that's a good place to wrap it up, I think. Thomas, look, thanks so much for giving your time. I really, really appreciate it. It's been an
Anytime.
absolute pleasure. Thank you. Well, hopefully it'd be nice to see you over here with Pete at some time. See if we can,
We are planning more things actually
Good.
after this. We're actually planning this album, which probably just have to do it remotely.
Yeah.
Because of travel and COVID and everything. But yes, we're planning. In fact, yesterday I wrote some more riffs for us to work on, and I want to keep the momentum going and get something recorded, and hopefully, maybe next year, come and do a little tour in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
That would be amazing. Thomas,
We'd love to
thanks.
come and play in North Wales.
Yes, please. We'll take it.
Okay.
Thank you, Thomas. You've been a gentleman. Take care now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.